It's always good when you turn it on.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the Corporation of the Town of Lincoln for March 20th, 2017. First item on the agenda is the national anthem, and I would ask you to stand and address the flag. Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a full complement of staff here this evening, and we have members of the public attending, which is always welcome to see. On my far right is Tony Brunet, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Lynn Timmers, Councillor Dave Thompson, Councillor Rob Foster. To my far left, Councillor Paul McPherson, Councillor Diane Regima, Councillor J.D. Pachariva, and Councillor Wayne McMillan. To my left is Mr. Mike Kirkopoulos, the CAO, and to my right, Mr. William Colossa, the Clerk of the Town of Lincoln. And in the second row of seats on the right, we have Carrie Beattie, who is our Senior Communications Advisor, Kathleen Dale, the Director of Planning and Development, and Dave Graham, the Director of Public Works. In the audience, we have, unfortunately, we don't have any extra spaces here. We'd have Councillor Bill Hodgson sitting with us, but Regional Councillor Bill Hodgson is with us this evening, and so we'll be engaging in some discussion with him a little bit later on the agenda. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have been in and still am in the process of seeking information and legal advice in terms of my status under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act regarding Report PL 1711 for the 8-story apartment building proposed for the property behind my house, which is in tonight's agenda under the public minutes of March 13th. Again, currently I'm in the information gathering phase. I'm seeking with specificity whether or not I do have a conflict to declare. My hope is to be able to participate fully in the decision-making process. I don't want to shirk my duty as a decision maker, but I also don't want to break the law. So I'll be returning with a decision on my status before we go into decision-making mode. And for tonight, for the consideration of those public meetings, I'll leave the room.
Actually, I'm going to ask the clerk for clarification on that. Mr. Clerk, can you clarify for us, without engaging in what is clearly Councillor Njima's personal decision, whether or not the passing of minutes implies that she needs to leave the room? It's my understanding that it did not, but I would appreciate some clarification on your part.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Normally the adoption of minutes, particularly if you were in attendance at the meeting and declared an interest at the meeting, does not constitute an interest or a conflict situation. In this case, the counselor was not present at the meeting. This is the first meeting at which she is attending. She has indicated that she is still researching, but out of an abundance of caution, she will be stepping out of the room. The process she is pursuing seems a very cautious and prudent one for the purposes of this meeting until such time as she has a clear indication as to whether or not she is in a conflict position. So,
Thank you for that. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, I wanted to ensure that you did not have to leave if it wasn't necessary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Anyone else? The next item is the confirmation of agenda. Is there any suggestions for any adjustments to the agenda? Very good. The adoption of the previous council meeting. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Brunet that the minutes of the March 6, 2017 regular meeting of council be adopted as circulated. Any errors or omissions? The pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? There being none, we'll move on to the mayor's report. Ladies and gentlemen, our last meeting was March 6th, 2017. There's a few items of community interest that I'd like to note for you. One was the celebration of the one-year anniversary of the Just Cooking restaurant, which is an Italian restaurant in Vineland and has become quite a gathering place within our community. On Saturday, I attended, and there may have been others as well, the retirement for Ed Cotrus, who operated Ed's Auto Service for 54 years. He made heavy equipment repairs, heavy truck repairs, and farm equipment, and operated a towing business. 54 years of work by any standard is very substantial and certainly commendable. 54 years of operating your own small business is certainly a major commitment, and we wish him well. He has certainly served this community well. I also attended an education session at Cave Spring Cellars regarding their BioGill cleansing system for wastewater. And I bring this to your attention tonight because it's very important for us to understand that there's a good deal of innovative technology that is going on in farming in the 21st century. This BioGill cleansing system is the first for any Canadian food and beverage company to set up, and the process includes the removing of organic material that is infused in wastewater for winemaking. And what happens with these particles, they use up water's oxygen, and eventually there is direct harm to fish and fish productivity. Today, I met with the expert resource that Mr. Kirkopoulos, on behalf of the town, has hired to assist council with the development of our code of conduct. The code of conduct is in the second reading in the legislature, and it will be a requirement for all municipalities. The consultant will be meeting with all councillors individually to collect their input, and then together we will gather to develop a value-based reference that's intended to encourage the highest standards of ethical behavior to uphold public trust and the integrity of governance and the town's reputation. The principles that are identified in a code of conduct are those recognized as being significant in the performance of political office. So, councillors, you can expect that she'll be in touch with you over the next week or two. have some other items that we're going to be tabling under the Regional Councilor's report. However, at this time, I want to regularly remind you that Lincoln is in a state of continuous change that will bring an improved economy and quality of life to our citizens. And on that note, to remind you that you live in Lincoln, where everyone strives to be a good neighbor and children are encouraged to achieve their very best. Through my time at the beginning of each meeting and other public engagements, I hope to send a message that lets our citizens know that Lincoln will deliberately set itself apart by instilling consideration and a sense of achievement in our everyday lives. You are part of those achievements, and this is how we do it here. Many thanks for opening your homes to us this evening, and on behalf of Council, thank you. We'll move on now to the Regional Council's report. And Bill, please, Councillor Hodgson, please come and join us at the table. Good. Welcome, Bill. Thanks very much for coming tonight. Your timing is perfect. There are a couple of issues that we were planning to have a look at, and the first one is the confidential report regarding the Burgoyne Bridge. I'm going to make a little bit of an introduction, and then you can participate if you wish. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing this to your attention tonight because there was quite a brouhaha in the media about this, because it was a leaked document, and this is in spite of the fact that a memorandum that was circulated by the regional clerk to both Councillor Hodgson and myself outlined very specifically what the responsibilities were of regional council in regard to this report. And so tonight, I want to acknowledge that there is a report. It was circulated for regional councilors' review. It was a confidential document because we did not wish to have any further steps in regard to any required investigations to be interfered with by information being in the hands of people that really shouldn't have had it. It could very well have an impact on the outcome of that review. So compliance to policy around confidentiality is not just a big city problem. It requires due diligence at all levels of government to ensure that staff, through their policy and procedural bylaws, are producing a transparent reporting to council, and thus informing decisions, accountability throughout ethical policy, ethical behavior. And that will stand for those of us who live in a fishbowl, which is our choice and what we should expect as public servants. There are more steps to be taken before a public report can be made, and I will ensure that we speak about this again. Councillor Hodgson certainly will come, and we will speak to this again, as there are millions of tax dollars involved. So, Councillor Hodgson, if you have any comments,
yeah, I can just say maybe a few words on it. It's not a fully secret document anymore, and that's, the mayor has outlined that as a problem. It becomes a problem because nothing's ever quite as simple as all of us would love to assume, and there's a bit of disappointment, I think, around the whole exercise of doing both the value for money audit and then the forensic audit that was launched after basically an anonymous tip suggested conflicts of interest may well have affected the cost of the bridge. Unfortunately, the audit itself doesn't really speak to the cost of the bridge, and the value for money audit found, while it found irregularities in terms of recording meetings, details, discussions, some documents that should have been in files were not. And these are problems, and I wouldn't want to suggest for a moment those are not problems, but those are, I think I would best characterize them as systemic or corporate problems. And there's going to be a lot of, and there needs to be, and it's already begun, changes at the Niagara region to try to fill some of those. And again, I just use the word technical. They are potentially costly gaps in appropriate recording. And I think that's what has been exposed the most. The unfortunate thing, again, about the release of the document is that the bar of proving what was the term? I believe it was started as the forensic audit was started with a look for fiduciary impropriety. And that's something that actually hasn't emerged at the moment. And I suspect the reason why the request was made to have a police department look at it, that somebody suspects something more. But I just think we need to keep it all into context. It doesn't answer the question, which is why did the bridge, and by the way, I'd like to correct the record, it did not double actually in cost. It's by the time it became a project, it was in the area of, I believe, $72 million was the estimate, and it did end up in the area of 93. Mm-hmm. And there are, I won't go into it, there are some technical reasons why those costs went high. Again, should those technical reasons have been uncovered, that's a matter for engineering experts to determine. It was discouraging. I recall during some of the reporting over the last couple of years that we did not have better explanations about what had been missed technically in the planning stages. But again, I don't think we can make excuses, any of us. Those of us who were on regional council at the time ultimately have to bear the responsibility for both the processes in place and for the fact that some of the cost overruns, while they were technically unavoidable, we certainly should have known about them and been able to articulate them to the public better than happened. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think the other little comment, actually, I want to make one more comment because I think it is important in the big picture. In the last, whatever it is, 15 years that I've been involved in the municipal field, there has never been a job posting that I can remember that didn't actually suggest that preference would be given to someone who has experience in the private sector. And so in the world of public works and in the world of roads, bridges, water, and wastewater, we necessarily have situations where a new employee will probably have worked for a private sector consulting company. And so it's pretty easy when you start scratching the surface to understand why someone might suggest there's a conflict of interest. There's only a handful of advanced engineering companies that do the work in the municipal field. So I just want to point that one out, and it's not an excuse. It just helps to understand the fact that you might end up with pretty close acquaintances who were once client and customer, and suddenly they're an employee. So I didn't find it as difficult to understand as perhaps some others might have. And I think it's important that we keep that all in mind always. And I think it's a great, again, if we're going to learn anything about the deep dive into this world of conflicts or apparent conflicts of interest, we need to be aware that perhaps in our, enthusiasm to ensure that we brought private sector employees into the public sector, that we probably should have anticipated some of these issues being coming to the fore. So that's the end of that one for now, but there's certainly
Right.
more to come. I'm just not holding my breath to get an answer as to why that price, and that's what I think the vast majority of people in the public wanted to know, is where did that price end up landing where it did. But I'm not sure that either of the audits are actually going to arrive there.
So I'm not sure, who knows how far the report has been circulated now. I certainly didn't feel that was my, I didn't feel that it was appropriate for it to be circulated just because someone else did it. But I think it's not appropriate for us to pretend that this wasn't big news in the last week, because it was. There's a lot of people asking questions. Through the points that Councillor Hodgson just made about how you blend private and public employees, and the question can be asked, are the safeguards there? I think that would be a very fair question, and that's one of the things that they looked at. What were those procedures to ensure that people who had an association could declare that, and how would it be documented, and where would it be filed? And those are the things that we'll be looking for sure in the new procedures. All right, another topic, ladies and gentlemen, that's very important for the Niagara region and also for each municipality is the Niagara Transit Service Delivery and Governance Strategy. On Thursday, the 23rd of March, Councillor Hodgson and I will be part of the Regional Council debating this. We have a consultant's report from Dillon Consulting. My purpose for tabling this evening is threefold. To make sure that all councillors know that this document is in the public record of the meetings that is coming up. I'd like to hear a few comments from Councillor Brunet about any discussions that he's aware of that took place at the Transportation Committee at the region. I have a question for Mr. Kirkopoulos, just for the very narrow purpose of ensuring that we will have it on a future agenda post haste, and then talk, allow Councillor Hodgson to make comments as well. So we have this document now. It's a public document. The document is seeing the light of day for the first time at Regional Council on Thursday night. And there is a recommended model that is coming forward, and that report is coming from deliberations between St. Catharines, City of St. Catharines, City of Welland, and the City of Niagara Falls. So, Councillor Brunet, would you make a few comments, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate that. As this council's representative on the Transportation Steering Committee, have an opportunity to go up and sit in that committee with Councillor Hodgson, and you know, over the last 2.5 years, we certainly get a chance to talk about all kinds of stuff, whether it's governance of airports or now intermunicipal transit. Don't always agree as a municipal transit at what's being discussed there, but certainly this Dillon report now speaks to the Niagara Transit Service Delivery and Governance Strategy as we move forward. So just a couple of comments. You know, from the executive summary, you know, for those listening at home, I just wanted to bring highlight basically, you know, why when the region's looking at this and in terms of how they move forward, you know, what is the need for intermunicipal transit, you know, to municipalities. So from the executive report, intermunicipal transit has a number of benefits to the region, to each local municipality and its residents, notably the introduction and improvement and expansion of intermunicipal transit providing cross-boundary mobility to education, employment, and medical and other services, supporting transit ridership to future GO Transit service in Niagara, which obviously is important to us as we look forward to a GO station and a GO bus that's already stopping here in Lincoln. Facilitating economic development by businesses that are seeking a connected workforce, contributing to a high quality of life for Niagara residents, and supporting sustainable community development. So with that said, certainly, we've been hearing, this is coming down the pipe. So a number of councillors from Lincoln Council, as well as myself, have been up to Grimsby, and we've been partaking in all the symposiums and the workshops that took place last year. And on March the 9th, the Transit Investigation Committee for Grimsby accepted report, and it appears, it has to come back to their F&A in June, but it would appear that Grimsby, after going through the process of a Dillon report, it looks like they're probably going to defer this for a couple of years. So it's interesting to see that council and that municipality has really engaged in that, but is now, upon reflection, looking at a lot of things. So I think that's that's interesting. So some of the questions that I think we need to ask, and as we move forward, as a council, just in my opinion, is what does the community want? What do our residents want? It's one thing to move people within Lincoln, and I think it's another thing to move people within the region. And are they the same? Does someone that live in Lincoln, are they sitting at home and they're concerned about mobility freedom? We have a GO bus. It's now stopping at Ontario Street, taking students to Niagara College, and I think that's a huge win. That's a great win for us, and we need to celebrate that. But when we talk about mobility freedom, what does it mean to the residents? And is that a link that they're looking for to get to the hospitals, to get to their doctor, to get to the Y? And are there people out there that are looking to get across the region? So I think those things are important. But certainly there's no doubt that as all the things that we're talking about as a council, when we talk about development and how we move people and traffic congestion and all the things that we as this council are being faced with, as well as an active transportation that we've just launched in December of 2016. These are all important things that we're going to have to reach out to our community and get some input from our residents and from transit experts, in my opinion. It's one thing for us to go to our CAO and get staff reports, but I think we really need to link in transit experts as well as listening to the residents of Lincoln. But there's no doubt about it, as we move forward, we all know we've got an aging population, and connectivity is going to be huge. Everyone is going to sit at home and say, at what cost? And everyone you talk to when it comes to intermunicipal transit, it's all done at a deficit, no different than our libraries and our arenas. So it's not a moneymaker in any way, shape, or form. So I guess those would be my comments. Madam Mayor.
I'm going to go to Bill and see what Bill would like to add to it, and then Mr. Krikopoulos will be asking you for some information about how we go forward.
Yeah, I think, we have had the discussion about intermunicipal transit for a long time, and I happen to be one of those who is quite convinced that actually to be a modern forward-looking community, we would need connections. And if we're going to provide employers, I think the number one and the key for, say, if we want to call us a center of excellence for agriculture, we know what we want is advanced manufacturing, the high end on the supply, on the whole supply chain. If we're going to have that, we need to have the connections. The exercise between Welland, Niagara Falls, and St. Catharines is a really complicated one. And I have experienced, the closest thing that I have experienced with that was when we amalgamated the two school boards. So we had 7 collective bargaining units, and we had to reduce it to 4. But we had a special law provided by the province of Ontario to do it. So as employers, we had employer rights, and we were able to secure some incredible efficiencies. And I think, well, I can remember the number. It was 19% reduction in central office staff by bringing the 2 school boards together. And that took about a 2-year transition period. Unfortunately, the Transit Commission and the transit departments of the cities don't have any extraordinary tools. So this discussion has been forever. It's very difficult. And it's got to a point now where they've recognized there is so much cost that they're going to incur to stay modern and current, even as a single city system. It's going to be more effective and more efficient to do it together. And I think that's what lies, I think, at the basis for a pretty big important step forward. It does not deliver new services to West Niagara, although it's clearly one of the priorities of any kind of steps forward. It's not going to happen next year, I guess. But it is, I believe it really has, we're to the point where Niagara is going to have to make a couple extraordinary steps to make themselves interconnected. And I'm not a transit user in that sense in Niagara, but I do know that if they had that unified system where there's one fare, one fare box, one type of system for payment, life becomes much more efficient, convenient, and transit becomes more attractive. So Tony's quite correct. This is going to be, it's a cost item for all municipalities, and there's no getting around it. But quite simply, with the interconnectedness that enhanced GO services are going to give us, quite simply, we need to be part of it, and we need to be part of a solution. I certainly understand. I understand where Grimsby, it's a small town, and if you're talking about a local transit that does deliver similar to what you might have in the city of St. Catharines, yeah, you're gonna probably pause and say, is that the kind of system we're looking for? And that's why I believe that if we can get the three independent transit systems to merge, that will present the opportunities for the type of connections that will probably be most effective and most valuable for our community, whichever way you want to look at it, whether through the eyes of a student, through the eyes of seniors and developers who are building homes and more high density developments. These are services that we need to try to make a step forward. So that's my view on it. There's no easy first step, but I believe the region will. My belief is the region will support it, and then it will be coming back to all of the 12 municipalities who haven't decided already to go ahead with the triple majority approval. So that'll be an important opportunity again for you to have that discussion. You'll have a much more detailed handle, I think, on costs, how it really is going to impact us from a cost point of view, and then council will have to try to make the best informed decision they can, and I'll be supportive whichever way this council goes. But I am a supporter of connections, at least the connections between intermunicipal core hubs or core areas. I'm not so much convinced that in a small town, door to door is the way we're going to ever go, unless we grow bigger than I think we're going to grow. So, okay.
So, thank you very much for that, Bill. Now, the question that I'm going to ask Mr. Kirkopoulos, because we're not getting into a debate here this evening, is what that next step is going to be, because we do need to have a fulsome discussion before we get to the triple majority situation. So, Mr. Kirkopoulos, what you have to say about that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and I think just to pick up on where Councillor Hodgson left off, the next step, once the region approves this, or should they approve it on Thursday, is the triple majority piece, which will lead it to come before all 12 local area municipalities. Our goal is to make sure we come back to council with an update on what is in that business plan, that business case, the executive summary that I think has been sent around and that council has reviewed, to take council through, I think, some of the comments that Councillor Brunet made with respect to what are we looking at from an intra-municipal transit, and we've had that discussion around this table, as well as what does intermunicipal transit mean and what are the potential costs associated with each of those. Some of that data is within the reports you have in front of you, but our goal would be to come to one of the next committee of the wholes and to have that broader discussion and a presentation, as well as to highlight some of the other things that we're doing in preparation for whatever type of transit finds itself in this community. And our focus to date really has been around Go Bus service and the advocacy and the desire of this council to move that forward. We're working on some upgrades to the new park and ride, and I can provide you some updates from that particular perspective. I think, as was highlighted, we did receive the recent announcement that GO is having a drop-off at Niagara College, and I think when we talked to the students that are getting on the bus in our particular location, that was one of the needs and one of the desires that was expressed. At council's direction, I'm also going to be meeting with the Niagara West CAOs and having a conversation now that Grimsby's had their own dialogue with respect to transit within their own boundaries, again, to highlight and to bring them up to speed on what we're doing from the perspective of the intra-municipal transit pilot, and as well just to see amongst the West Niagara CAOs and municipalities where we're at. So I anticipate being in front of you at the next committee of the whole with an overview and a presentation.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Bill, for taking part in that. And maybe we can have a discussion about how you can participate during the committee of the whole discussions, because I think your background would be quite relevant there. So, Councillor, I think you also had some issues that you wanted to bring forward this evening.
I won't go on, but the two, they're really both to thank council for resolutions that you passed that are tremendously important to parts of our community and the broader community right across Niagara. And the first one is your resolution in support of the irrigation working group that we put together through our agricultural action committee at the region. And the irrigation is one of those things that actually it's difficult to keep traction going. There's so much private investment in private sources and permits to take water. Once we get into a wet year, the interest, it's tough. The farmers are very, very busy. This year was so extraordinary, though. The irrigation committees of the grape growers, Tenderfruit, Town of Niagara and the Lake have an irrigation committee with their own already existing system. All of a sudden, there's no more beating around the bush. We need some major, major investments partnered with other levels of government to try to ensure that we improve the access to water during these extreme weather events. There's no reason to believe that last summer is a one-off, knowing what we do about the extremes of climate change. So that one is really just to thank you for that. And Mayor Easton, of course, is on the APAC committee and was at the meeting with the irrigation working group, actually, so that she knew exactly what our strategy is, and we're trying to get some resources at the region to help us get the next steps forward on an irrigation strategy. There's that one, and then the other one I wanted to thank you. I understood entirely why council kind of waited a little bit before they wanted to have an opinion as a council on the topic of the requested investigation of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. Your decision finally to make a statement was much appreciated. And again, I certainly want you to know that I understood exactly why you hesitate. I know when I was mayor, I always said we don't have opinions on things we don't need to have opinions on. Unfortunately, though, it's got to the point where, and I think for any of you who have been following the situation at the Conservation Authority, there's a bit of a it's a very frustrating exercise, and I can tell you that my position ending up as, I guess, the one out of 15 on the board who very much supports having an audit done of some of the practices and business practices at the NPCA come more, not so much from specifics of any story I've heard. It's the fact that the general public are being ignored, they're being insulted, and they're being belittled. They're being called special interest groups, and it's not becoming of an elected body that spends tax dollars. So just want you to know that I know there's a resolution again coming tonight at the City of St. Catharines. Whether they pass it or not, I don't know, of course. But we did, in January, manage to get the NPCA to agree to hold itself to account. And what happened 2 weeks or 3 weeks later then was a complete, basically, they say they're following the resolution, but really a grade 2 student would understand you're not following the resolution, because the resolution provided for an independent consultant, an independent investigation, and it explicitly laid out responsibilities and accountabilities, and the staff were not part of it because they're the ones who are involved in the decision making that is being questioned. So at any rate, I guess I would just say, happen to agree with some of the people who say if you have nothing to hide, hide nothing. And unfortunately, there's just some digging in and some stubborn opinions that are making it very, very difficult for the community to have and to regain the public trust, and the trust that's so important. You can't do the work of a conservation authority without the public trust, without working with people, as opposed to going in at them and calling them special interests. So I just wanted to thank you, because you did finally make that statement, and you joined a chorus of municipalities. The right thing is to quite simply have some third party look at things. We're not going to change. We can't undo the past, and we're not looking for a pound of flesh. What we're looking for is an opportunity to push the reset button in the relationship that the NPCA has with the public. And they've missed a couple opportunities in the last couple months. And so we're going to just stay with it. And I know that they're, including all the 4 MPPs from Niagara, have all voiced their concerns along with municipalities. So just stay tuned. I guess that's all I would say.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Questions.
Yeah.
Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Bill. Just a quick thing that I want to go through, but I just wanted to say I'm glad you made mention of what's going on with the Burgoyne Bridge, although I had to say I was down at the Meridian Center the other night, and I was looking at it. It is a beautiful structure when it's all said and done. I mean, you know, it's going to be a great landmark for St. Catharines.
$90 million will get you.
Yeah, but you know, something that you know, hopefully in the end everything's good with that. So a quick question on to you. You and I have been back and forth through email on this a little bit, but both for you and Mayor Easton, there's some pretty significant development is about to be taking place within the Beamsville area. And so I know there's a review of traffic that's going on with the region as well as our town being involved with it, and we're about to embark on our own review as well. But I'm hoping that the region is keeping in mind some of the traffic flow, particularly getting into the Beamsville area. and making use of some of the other routes that could potentially be designed to pull people in and get them away from Ontario Street.
Yeah,
So,
I know we had that discussion the other day, and it is timely, and Councillor Brunet knows we've had some pretty lively discussions at the Transportation Committee at the region regarding the direction of the transportation planning, the big picture planning for the region. I think it's fair to say that things have been a little slow, and it's a little difficult. I think even implied to you, I didn't know who to get an answer from because we've had so many staff changes that it's sometimes thrown kind of the corporate memory into a bit of a tizzy. So, but clearly, I think the transportation strategy is going to be finished in the coming year. There seems to be a focus on, I think the mayor's been in some of these discussions where they want to take big chunks of transportation issues in each municipality and essentially treat it as a project and come up with the solutions looking at it. So I believe that's where we're going, and maybe Councillor Brunet has another thought on where it's going, but I believe that's it. And we talk a lot about complete streets and what that means to us. We talk a lot about, trying to find those alternate routes so that the traffic is relieved and the safety issues that some of us have can be alleviated. So no, those were all good points. I'll just end it with this one too, because this afternoon, so I just did get notice from the acting director of transportation that they will be putting up appropriate signage for the absence of bike lanes on the Victoria Avenue overpass. So they got back to me fairly quickly on that one, and they'll be putting up, bike lanes end and share the road signs. And I'm not sure there's any painting on the road, but it hopefully will address some of the concerns, because there's absolutely nothing on that particular overpass.
And Councillor, did they mention Ontario Street at all?
Not in that email. So
Okay. All right.
we'll have to remind them.
Okay. Yes, actually, and even on the topic of the infrastructure gap, it really hasn't, the discussion hasn't been fleshed out very well at all, but on Wednesday at Corporate Services, we'll have another discussion, and the whole issue of infrastructure gap is a big one, and the projects are of such a size now that they need to be cohorted in a way that puts the right kind of controls in place when you're dealing with those big projects. And that means project managers and certainly more staff that's going to have to lead these things, or we could end up with more issues. So we'll see where that takes us. But, and we really have not had any discussion, I don't think, that you could draw any conclusions from. Did I see another hand up on this side? Okay, on this side, any questions? And Councillor McPherson, my apologies, do you remember your question when you had your hand up before? And Councillor Hodgson was talking about the issue, the transportation.
I'm okay. I think just in the general discussion, we're going to move to a broader discussion on the whole intermunicipal transit.
Right.
So I don't
That's
think
the intention.
we don't need to talk about that tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Hodgson, did you have anything else? Very good. We appreciate your coming. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. All right, Councillor, we move on now to Councillor reports. And I can't remember where I started last time, but I think I'll start this time with Councillor McMillan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things that have happened over the last little while that I want to bring attention to Council. At the Heritage Committee at our last meeting, we elected a chair and vice chair. Carla Mackey has been returned as chair, and Vic Dirksen was returned as the vice chair for this 2017. And the other issue is information that was brought to us at the library board. And at one of the recent meetings, we were informed that the library had gone through an accreditation process. And I'd just like to take a couple of minutes just to walk through the process so that council will understand exactly what happened in the accreditation process and the results of that process as far as our library is concerned. So in the accreditation process, there's a team of two visitors or two auditors that come to the library, and they evaluate it against specific guidelines. And if the audit measures are reached, the library would then be recommended to the Accreditation Council, and once approved, then become an accredited library, which is a recognized achievement within the Ontario Public Library community. So our own Lincoln Public Libraries had its audit done in 2016, and then in October, it was reviewed and approved by the Ontario Public Library Guidelines Monitoring and Accreditation Council in December. So the library did receive its certificate at the Ontario Library Association Conference in February. So Lincoln Public Library successfully achieved its third accreditation over the past few years. So I want to congratulate our library staff. It is a major achievement, once again, that was bestowed upon our libraries, bestowed by the Ontario Public Library Accreditation Council. So again, congratulations to our library staff for the work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. And Mr. Clerk, you'll make note of that achievement in the minutes. Thank you. Councillor Pachariva.
Thank you, Worship. First off, I'd just like to thank Councillor Renchima for delivering the minutes of the Finance and Admin Committee for me. Last council meeting, as I had to fly up to Sault Ste. Marie and attend to my son who was in an accident. So I appreciate Diane for doing that. So mine's going to go back a little bit because I had everything written out. So March 1st, I attended the launch at the Scotiabank Centre along with yourself, Your Worship, for the Canada 2021 games, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be finding out some good news about that next week. On March the 2nd, we had our third Niagara Investment in Culture Grant Committee meeting, and we made the recommendations, and those recommendations went to our Culture Committee on Thursday, March 9th, and they're coming forward at the Planning and Development Committee meeting on March 22nd. So the NIC program process, the adjudication panel was made up of 3 regional councillors. Councillor Hodgson was one of them. 2 culture committee members, I was one, and our vice chair Joe Henriques, and 6 members of the community. For 2016-17, there were 28 applications for funding received, requesting approximately $456,000. The adjudication panel approved funding to 25 projects, 7 of which will receive the full funding they requested, and the remaining will receive a portion of their funding request. Funded projects are located in 10 of the 12 municipalities, although there is potential for some of them to travel. The projects include festivals, music performances, theater productions, video creation, museum exhibits, and youth programming. There's a total of $300,000 budgeted for the Niagara Investment in Culture Program, and the 25 projects that will be funded in the 2016-17 year range from $2,500 to $30,000. That evening at our Culture Committee, Mayor Doug Joyner from West Lincoln is continuing on as the chair, and Joe Henriques is our public member, and he's going to continue on as vice chair. We reviewed our culture plan, and we wanted to make some recommendations going forward on how we should concentrate on it. And I brought forward to take a look at promoting and marketing Niagara as a cultural destination to both residents and tourists. And my other one was recognize and celebrate the contributions of culture to the Niagara community. A third offshoot of that is creating kind of a, and some of the other committee members had the same idea, but having sat on the NIC adjudication panel for the last 2 years, creating a NIC Culture Awards program. So, whether it's It's, you don't want to pick winners and losers, but whether it's best festival or best volunteer or best use of the money, things like that, to really recognize those people that take the time and effort to fill out these grant applications and requests. Having done that, it's a thankless job. The money's nice, but in culture, it often goes a long way to get a pat on the back, to get recognized by your peers, and you know, have someone kind of to strive for that brass ring. So that's one of the things that I'm going to bring forward. I would ask council, you know, to have a look at our cultural plan. I can get you copies of it. If there's anything on there you would like me to bring forward, I would be more than happy to. The other thing too, though, and Your Worship, you pointed it out, we had a presentation that night about, from Niagara-on-the-Lake, their UNESCO committee. So they are seeking a pursuit of designation. They've been at this for probably better part of 10 or 15 years. So it's Parks application, or Parks Canada has a tentative list, and this is the first time in 14 years that they've sought applications. The only cultural designation in the province of Ontario is at the Rideau Canal in Ottawa. So they're seeking, you know, the same designation, and it's a cultural landscape. So taking the look at the cultural landscape of Niagara-on-the-Lake, because it goes back, you know, hundreds of years to the time of the Civil War, the time of the War of 1812, when it became a melting pot, where people sought refuge, not only in Niagara-on-the-Lake, but Niagara as a whole. So it was really interesting. They hear in December of 2017, if they're on the short list, another 2 to 3 years to develop that. Then Canada will put together 2 or 3 submissions to UNESCO. To date, the group has probably put in about, actually there's $30,000 of seed money that's already been committed by the town, and they'll need another $75,000 to $100,000 to complete the process. So we wish them luck in doing that. It's quite a large venture, and I think we could gain some culture and economic spin-offs from their designation.
Very good. Thank you very much. I was I hadn't read their application before the submission, so it was very interesting to read that. Is that it for you, Councillor?
Actually, no. And you know what? I'd be digressed if I didn't mention Councillor Brunet and I. We attended the Lions Breakfast yesterday at the Lincoln Center, and I don't know whether it was because Councillor Brunet bought breakfast, but my gosh, it was tasty. So I would recommend everyone. It's the 3rd Sunday of the month. We invited Councillor McPherson to come along with us, but too late. He was, yes.
He got up and ate his breakfast already. Councillor Njima, thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On Saturday morning, I attended an accessibility roundtable convened by Sam Oosterhoff. Members of our Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee had reached out to him a couple of months ago, and he attended one of their meetings. And after that, he took it upon himself to organize this roundtable, and it was held at Grimsby Town Hall, and it was well attended. It was good of him to do this. He's trying to gain more understanding of what's happening in this area as far as accessibility goes. There was about 30 people there. We typically, when we think of accessibility, we think of people in wheelchairs. But the Accessibility for Ontario's Act is meant to address many challenges like hearing impairment, sight impairment, etc. There were 5 hearing challenged young adults participating, and Sam had a very good interpreter there on hand, which really brought home one of the issues that they talked about, which was that while some of them were in school, they struggled quite a bit in Ontario trying to get what they needed in order to learn. They needed a skilled interpreter, not just any interpreter, but a skilled interpreter, and quite a few of them struggled with that. They ended up with people that weren't helping them, that really didn't know what they were doing, and they were missing a lot of information. And not only did they need an interpreter, but some of them also need because when you have an interpreter, you have to be looking at their sign language. So they weren't able to take notes. And quite often they had to choose between an interpreter and a note taker. So this is one of the things that came out of this discussion primarily was education and quality of education for people with disabilities. And another issue that was discussed and that Sam is going to take back is there was criticism about the lack of enforceability for the Accessibility for Ontarios with Disabilities Act. Participants talked about municipalities and how some are better at others than keeping up with AODA requirements. They said that the act is full of shoulds and mays and not enough shalls and wills. And speaking of will, I was proud to be there representing Lincoln, knowing that our clerk regularly updates us on our compliance with AODA regulations and that we consistently meet them. Another point that was made was that Premier Wynne appointed at the beginning of her term a first ever accessibility minister, Tracy McCharles. A good move, but the concern is that there was plans to create a committee to identify standards for accessibility and that hasn't happened yet. So that's something Sam is going to take back as well. Accessibility is not something that we discuss regularly here at Council because we have a strong committee that we have participate in and we pay for each year with I think 4 other municipalities, and we use them for consulting and they do a very good job. But roughly 1.85 million people in Ontario have disabilities as defined under the AODA, and that's a significant amount out of 13.6 million people. So it's clearly something that we should keep at top of mind at Council as we make decisions on things like community design, education, residential development, our business areas, poverty and affordable housing, employment and economic development, recreation and leisure, transportation, the very old and the very young, and everyone in between. So I'm looking forward to hearing what comes out of that. And the only other thing I have to discuss is at the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, the OBAAs, the Outstanding Business Achievement Awards, are taking place March 29th, and they're sold out. So if you haven't got a ticket yet, you're not going.
Great. Thank you very much. Very informative. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And one item I have, I did attend the monthly Beamsville BIA meeting last Thursday. A number of things on the agenda. We talked about the plans for the farmers market for this summer. We have established, as I've mentioned before, a subcommittee for the market. Plans are moving along nicely for a June 1st start through Labor Day. Looking for vendors. Contact Marianne Lapitan of the BIA if you're interested out there. We also had a discussion on the start of a beautification subcommittee that we have some interested people that are wanting to get involved in downtown beautification, so that's very encouraging. And we had some preliminary discussions about getting that subcommittee going. We talked about Canada 150 and the project for downtown, and it was felt as though it would be appropriate that we meet with the Canada 150 group and get on somewhat the same page, understand what the plans are and how we play a role as the BIA in those plans. So that meeting is going to happen tomorrow. We also went through the 2017 BIA budget and approved it as the BIA, and now we'll bring it back to the CAO. And finally, our executive director, Marianne Lapitan, and a BIA board member, Jennifer Turner, are going to attend the Ontario BIA conference in Toronto April 2nd to 5th. And I think there's a lot of things we can learn by going to that conference, and the networking opportunities and just how other BIAs are doing things. I think we can really gain some insight down at that conference. So that's the summary I have. Thank you.
All right, Counselor, I have a question. I didn't hear any mention of, under the beautification, that there was any push from the BIA to do, to see changes with those 2 empty spots on the main street. Is that an invisible thing, or are we?
No, I think that will certainly be part of it. I don't, if I personally have not talked about it, they certainly have, almost every meeting. It is a discussion, and I think that subcommittee can certainly pursue options for that downtown, that part of downtown, and push for development ultimately. I mean, that's what we want to have happen there, is development. But that will be part of that subcommittee's role. I see it.
Okay. It's too bad. The time just keeps going on, and there just doesn't seem to be any interest at all. I think it's good they formed a committee at least. Thank you. Councillor.
On a positive note, though, Your Worship, there is a for lease sign in the store front street level unit at Kimberly's building, finally. So that wrong has been righted. So that's a win for the group.
Our bylaw officer, Chris Collings.
If I may, Madam Mayor, I would say that there's probably a who owns it, who owns the issue is part of what we're struggling with, and that, is it a town of Lincoln issue? Is it a BIA issue? Is it hey, what can we do? The owners will do what they want to do. So, there's certainly some that feel as though it is the town's area of responsibility. So I think that we probably need some discussion around that, and how do we move, the rock down the road. So.
It's definitely a partnership.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that they were responsible, but they certainly have an important perspective that we don't want to miss out on. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, and I have a report other than to emphasize what Councillor Patriba said. As many of our service clubs throughout the community, the Lions Club, that's a great event they put on, that breakfast. They're all hands on deck, full complement of members out there. They put on a great breakfast, and I thank Councillor Patriba for sending me the text, and it was my opportunity to buy. So I'm sure he's holding the 50-50 winnings as a secret, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I have a couple of things. Councillor McPherson had brought up Canada 150 Committee, which I'm a member of. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on at Canada 150. As it is now spring, we're waiting for those tulips to start coming up through the ground. So I'd encourage all the residents and everyone to be watching for them. As part of that, we are going to be going back to all of our public schools and presenting them with an engraved trowel and getting pictures of their gardens when they're finally in full bloom. There's also going to be a photo contest being launched, so there's details to come on that. We're going to have a photo contest all across Lincoln for people to send in pictures of their tulip gardens, and there's some pretty good prizes as well. Just for your information, you can go on the Town of Lincoln website. There's a button on the front page for the Canada 150 committee. What we're looking for is there's applications there, so anyone who wants to volunteer, we're looking for volunteers. There's all kinds of things going to be happening in Lincoln. So there's an application for volunteer if you'd like to volunteer. And there's also an application for people to tell us about their events. We really want you to let us know what you're planning out there, whoever you are, if you're the BIA or your businesses in town or community groups. We really want to know what you've got in mind for Canada 150. So lots of exciting stuff around the corner, and I've got to check my tulips tomorrow because they're still under snow. So anyway, that's it for me tonight.
Councillor, two things. When you report at the next meeting, could you bring a detailed report on the main projects that the committee is working on? And also, are you in a position tonight to tell us about the song?
I can't really give you too much detail other than we have the music at this point. We do not have lyrics. We are currently, that's something I should actually announce, we are looking for someone who's out there that could possibly write the lyrics for us for our Canada 150 song. We have not yet found anyone that's volunteered to do that. So that's something we're working on. We are going to be doing a press release with a lot of detail about what's coming. So, but absolutely, I can bring back more detail for sure.
Be great. I think it would be a great opportunity. I had a meeting early on in the process with representatives from the Lincoln Concert Band and asked them if they had connections to be able to have a song written, and they did that. And so it's going to be a song about Niagara, and so it'll be sung all over the region. So it's pretty nice that the Lincoln Concert Band were so instrumental in getting the music written, the score. That's wonderful. So, well, we can have some more discussions about the lyrics. Thank you very much, Councillor. There's a lot of hard work being done with that committee. There's no question. It's going to be, the celebrations are going to be really fun and really exciting legacy projects ahead of us, which is going to be great for the community. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I have nothing this evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Foster?
I have nothing to add this evening either, although it seems that I think I'm going to be out every night for the next 2 weeks, so I'm going to have a 25-minute report next time.
Good enough. Fair enough. And Mr. Clerk, thank you very much for your participation in ensuring that we got a good report card on our accessibility compliance. It's always good to know. We have no delegations this evening. And Mr. Clerk, do you happen to have any correspondence that we don't know about? All right, thank you. And we move down to reports. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmer, seconded by Councillor Brunet, that the minutes of the Infrastructure Committee meeting of March 8th, 2017 be adopted and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we had a full complement of members other than Councillor McPherson sent his regrets, and Councillor Timmer sat in for Councillor McPherson. We had a full staff there, Director of Public Works, David Graham, Manager of Roads and Fleet, Lee Rippenberg, and Manager of Technical Services, Walter Neubauer. So the first report that we had, Councillor Pachariva, being the former chair, is very passionate of a number of things, and one of those things is living snow fence. So he brought a motion forward for us to consider that the town of Lincoln work with the Niagara region to establish a living snow fence program. So we had quite a bit of discussion about this. There are a number of moving parts for sure, and certainly you know, we talked about the environmental issues, we talked about the economic benefits of using you know, living windbreaks, whether it be you know, bales of hay, or whether it be corn or hedges. So there was considerable discussion. You know, as chair, I tried to be prepared for the meeting. So one of the things that that I found out in the archives that, living snow fences have been around for a long time. As an example, the Grand River Conservation Authority since 1954 has planted with landowners more than 26 million trees. So this is something that's been going on for a long time. So we all agree, the committee agrees that it needs further discussion. There's many opportunities that we can look to, whether it's Brock University, whether it's University of Guelph, whether it's the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. So there was good discussion, and it was decided that we need further deliberations and bring it back for staff to investigate further and report back to the committee. The next report was PW 1703. It was a summary report. It was a PowerPoint presentation that was put on by Mr. Rippenberg with regards to what we do throughout the municipality and a roads summary report for the fiscal year of 2016. So just very quickly, just to give a brief, background in terms of, what we do throughout the municipality and why we do it. Back in 2012, I believe it was, we had a roads needs study that was developed. So following that completion of the 2012 road needs study, there was a significant backlog of needs that were identified, and so staff have been working to develop what we call a pavement preservation strategy that encompasses different preservation practices with an overall philosophy of keeping the good roads while not forgetting about the bad roads. So just to talk about, the infrastructure and the overview of what the municipality looks after, we have 305 kilometers of municipally owned roadways, 49 bridges, and 130 culverts. The breakdown on that is about 67% rural, and the remaining being urban and semi-urban. So it was a great presentation put on by Lee. We talked about and we saw visually, how we're investing in the roads. An interesting stat, from the year 2010 to 2013, we were averaging 9 kilometers of roadway per year over the 4-year period, so about 3% of our entire network was being looked at. And currently now, from the years 2014 through 2017, we're averaging 27 kilometers of road per year over a 4-year period, which makes up just under 9% of our network. So there's no doubt that this council is listening to the concerns of our residents and our roads, and we certainly are making a big investment there. The report talked about the different ways that we look at that, whether it be pavement preservation through single surface treatment, hot mix overlay, crack sealing, and microsurfacing. We talked about the annual capital road resurfacing and rehabilitation program we've invested in, and it was a great report. Talk about roadside ditching and crack sealing, and the signage that goes on throughout the municipality. We highlighted some of the town projects that will take place in 2017. The Drake Avenue and neighborhood water main replacement, the culvert replacement program. We have 4 culverts that will be replaced this year. The bridge rehabilitation detailed design work for Bridge 17 on Dutch Lane. The salt management plan and how we move forward with that, and best management practices, and how we're using technology within the Public Works Department in terms of how we look after our not only our staff but our vehicles, and tracking data and looking at key performance indicators. Certainly, the report highlighted that as we move forward and as we grow within the municipality, we've got approximately 8 to 13 kilometers of urban roads that will be added to our network over the next few years, and so certainly we have to be cognizant of staff as this council as we move forward, and Director Graham and Lee certainly made us aware of that. So it was a great report, and the committee received that as information. The next report was PW 1704, the Capital Road Resurfacing and Rehabilitation Program tender results. So the tender, the low bidder on the tender was Norjon Contracting at $1,255,811. We had a discussion about some additional work that was being considered. And so we discussed Conkle Road as well as Zimmerman Road, and we had considerable discussion on that, the pros and cons. And so we received the report, received the tender results, and made a recommendation that council award the 2017 Capital Road Resurfacing and Rehabilitation Program to Norjon for the tendered amount that I've mentioned, as well as awarding the tender with additional provisions of Road A, Conkle Road, and B, Zimmerman Road, resulting in an estimated budget overage of $111,333.50. We had information through the CAO, through the Director of Finance, as how that could be funded, and I believe it was from the gas fund. The next report was PW 1705, Drake Avenue and surrounding neighborhood road reconstruction. And again, we talked about the tender results from that project. And we had a discussion about that. Council passed a motion to award the contract for Drake Avenue and surrounding neighborhood road reconstruction project for the tender amount of $2,835,500.10 to Nextera Substructure. The tender did come in over budget, and council is recommending to approve the allocation of additional funding required to complete the project as outlined for additional funding requirements to come from that project, as well as awarding the firm of Urban Environmental Management, UEM, to be retained to provide contract administration and full investigation services at the cost of $130,000, excluding HST. Then we had a report, PW 1706, which was the Drake Avenue and Ontario Street intersection traffic signal request update. And what might seem to be something that might not have a lot of discussion or might be fairly minute, certainly morphed into quite a bit of discussion. And again, I guess it's it's what is important to our residents and what's important to this council and this municipality. I mean, Ontario Street is certainly a regional road, and so we had a report come back advising that after the completion of a traffic study that the Niagara region concluded that the traffic signal was not warranted. So committee certainly had a lot of discussion. I point out that Councillor Foster was there that evening. He's not on the committee, but he was certainly there representing Award 1 and making sure that as infrastructure, we were certainly hearing his concerns, as well as Councillor Rinjama's concern and his constituents, that we need to be cognizant as we move forward with all the development we've got in some other areas, including Vista Ridge and Cherry Heights, that we need to be cognizant that even though this report's coming back from the region that this might not be warranted at this point, that we need to be very aware that in future this might not be the case. So we had good discussion about that, and we advised that further discussion is required with the region of Niagara to develop a more holistic approach to determine whether those lights are required. So it was some very good discussion on that, and I think it was warranted. The last report that evening was PW 1707, and was proposed traffic bylaw amendments for Vinewood Park Extension 3 subdivision. And Councillor McMillan certainly gave some input into that development and to why and what the reasons are for that, and offered some good insight. So council amended the Town of Lincoln bylaw 89-2000 Schedule C to allow for the implementation of on-street parking restrictions within the Vinewood Park Extension subdivision. We had some great councillor inquiries. Councillor McPherson, as I alluded to earlier, was not there, but his concerns were certainly brought forward by Councillor Timmers in terms of a status update on the Jordan Village Improvements EA study. We talked about roadside ditching conditions on Bethesda Road and Yonge Street that Mayor Easton brought forward. We talked in terms of the standards of pedestrian crosswalks, and how, as we move forward with an aging population, we need to be talking to the region in terms of how those crosswalks work today, in terms of the time allotted to get across those intersections and how we might want to influence those things moving forward with the region. We also had a discussion about the sign that had just been put up by the region coming down Mountain Street to help improve truck traffic and make people aware, drivers that are coming down there, that they're moving into a school district and they need to slow down as they come down that crest. So all in all, it was a very good meeting, and we adjourned at 10 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Not so much questions, but just some comments and follow-up. First of all, Councillor Brunet runs a great meeting, so that was a lot of fun going through with that. No disrespect to the previous chair. He's correct in that we did have a sensational discussion around the concept of traffic lights and where warrants come into play. And there's a number of traffic intersections within the Beamsville area and, of course, throughout the town. But we've discussed Stadelbauer and King for a long time now. We've discussed Drake in Ontario. We've discussed Friesen in Ontario. And I think it's really important that we have a good discussion with the region about where they come up with these numbers around warrants. I mean, you know, if the simple reality is that Ontario Street is a hugely busy street. So if the warrants are coming about because of what's coming down Ontario Street, well then, you know, maybe there's a slightly different story that's going into play with this. If it's just simply, you know, ones that are coming out from the particular subdivision, you know, that may also be an interesting way that they've gone. Anyway, we need to have a better discussion with them, and I think part of this traffic study that's being done through the region, and I know you and Councillor Hodgson are going to be actively involved with that, but I simply think there are some traffic issues that we have to deal with within our municipality, and we need to make the region understand that, you know, no matter what they're coming to us with, these things simply have to be done. So anyway, I thought it was a really good discussion, so thank you.
Very good. Councillor Pachariva?
Yeah, I was just going to throw in my 2 cents about that. Having attended the Public Information Center for the Drake Avenue reconstruction, we were talking about that. That was front and center. One of the items that the residents brought up was, you know, looking at having a stoplight established at this intersection. And we were told about, you know, the warrants. So the warrants were coming back and they were saying that there wasn't enough traffic on Drake. So we made a point that evening and we said, you know, can you let us know when this traffic study is taking place? If I live in that neighborhood, I don't live in that neighborhood, but I will not go out Drake. I will go up and around to John Street. But if I know that there's a traffic study being taken place about the imminence of a light possibly going in, then I would make every effort to use that intersection to get the counts up. And then I think it was Councillor McMillan that night too brought up the fact that there's a light installed at the corner of Regional Road 81 and 3rd Street. In preparation for the new hospital. There is not the warrants there warrants to warrant the traffic there, you know, to justify that light. So you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. You can't say that they must go in based on traffic now, and then in other places you put in for traffic in the future. Councillor Foster pointed out those new subdivisions coming on board. We could use that. So it's great to have Councillor Hodgson here tonight. So hopefully, Bill, you can take those concerns back, fight for us for a light there, light at Stadelbauer, and then further going forward, a light at Hillside and Mountain Street to access the new subdivision, the Lozani development. Thank you.
Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. The one thing I alluded to, I wanted to keep this to the end, and then it just eluded me. So during the evening, during the meeting, we had a lot of discussion about, you know, what we're doing as a municipality when it comes to roads. And, you know, a lot of times we all, as councillors and as staff, we're always getting emails and questions about, you know, why do you do certain things? You know, the comment was made at the meeting, how many times we get a question about, why are you paving in 2-foot strips? So one of the things that the Director of Public Works, Mr. Graham, is working on is a document. It wasn't ready to go, but the committee was able to receive this document in terms of, what the Public Works is doing. So we had quite a bit of discussion about how we can get this out to our residents. So, we're always talking about, what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I do know that Director Graham has spoken to the CAO, and I believe, through you, Madam Mayor, maybe the CAO can just talk, but I believe there's a communication piece that we're working on so that through Carrie Beattie and our finance, we can get this out through our tax bill, through you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Koukopoulos.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the council's correct. Following up from that meeting, Director Graham did share with both myself and Ms. Beattie that we would be, that committee had directed us put a comprehensive communication plan together around some of the road work and infrastructure work that council has undertaken. I think one of the items that was discussed is a tax insert, and so we will communicate via email back with council as we finalize those details, including that particular piece.
Okay. Councillors, from the discussion that we've been having, it's, I'm interpreting that we have asked for more information. We have a study that's going to be taking place in the Lincoln Square area. Do we have a gap here in terms of the next step for ensuring that all this information can be taken collectively to the regional staff, or is it a bit fragmented? Mr. Koukopoulos, if you could answer that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, while it may appear, I think, the way sometimes this information comes forward, that it does appear to be fragmented, I can assure you Director Graham is taking notes, and we're following up on everything that does come forward. So I don't believe it's fragmented. We do have a transportation master plan that we're undertaking as a local area municipality. There's one simultaneously right now underway at the region. And in addition to that, while we are doing something in Lincoln Square, we're also hearing the concerns relative to stop signs, stop lights, and the traffic flow in the community. So I don't believe there is a gap. I think that follow-up will be happening, and it's something that Director Graham and Commissioner Ron Tripp will be meeting on moving forward.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much for that confirmation. All right. Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. We move on to the public meeting minutes of March 13th. I have a motion moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Foster, that the minutes of the public meeting of March 13th, 2017 be received. Any questions to the motion? Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Foster, that the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting of March 13th, 2017 be adopted and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So we did have an early start at 6 p.m. on the 13th, and I appreciate committee's indulgence on that, as we have a fairly heavy workload, and we may be attempting to do the same thing moving forward, having the public meetings at 7 o'clock and some of the other stuff a little earlier, just to keep things moving along. One of the first housekeeping items that we had was in and around the maintenance period for Vinewood Park Estates 3 subdivision. So we had a report on that. We also had a report on Lincoln Square letter of credit reduction, which is a normal process in the planning department. We also had the building activity report. What was noticed was that higher single detached houses in 2016 in comparison to a larger number of townhouses. Larger agricultural products were increasing the construction values. 57% of the permits were residential, and the rest were a combo of industrial, commercial, institutional, and agricultural. Then we had a report on the status of active residential developments. We spoke about the Lincoln Square parking and traffic study, which you just alluded to a few moments ago. The intent is to begin this after the completion of Tim Hortons on John and Ontario Street. It was done by IBI originally prior to the building of the subdivision there. They previously did the traffic analysis reports, so the process should be much quicker engaging them in this for the report we're looking for now. And then we had Director Dale put forward her 2017 work plan. There are a lot of projects on the go, so expect very heavy planning committee meetings. Highlighting the work plan highlighted department changes such as the addition of bylaw services, the accomplishments Q1 through Q4 in 2016, and some of the 2017 major projects. So some of the significant things from 2016 were obviously some significant OMB wins for the town. First of all, the refusal of the Shire OMB appeal, and also one supporting our Center of Excellence and official plan with the Bench Brewing Cuesta support of that particular application. So it was very good to see the OMB understanding where we're going with this. And obviously, final, last but not least, was definitely our OP. Our official plan was actually finally approved. So now we can move forward on that. We also spoke to, the report also spoke to enhanced customer service and proactive resolution to issues. The fact that the CityView public portal is up and running, helping with efficiency, and we're working on strategies to encourage the uptake for use of that portal. Just some of the priorities and major projects of 2016, and I'll just run through them very quickly because there are a lot of them, and I don't want to keep everybody sort of, the report is obviously online and available for folks to peruse at their leisure, but certainly some major things are the completion of the Prudhomme secondary plan, completion of the community improvement plan for Prudhomme's, the Committee of Adjustment review, completion of the special events policy and implementing bylaws, including the noise bylaw, preparing a heritage grant program, providing staff to support the Heritage Committee and assume responsibility for the Heritage Review function, providing staff to support the Active Transportation Committee, implementation of a parking strategy, completion of ticket tracer implementation for administrative monetary penalty, which is a system we've gone to in our bylaw enforcement with regards to parking, updating the bylaw complaints process and policy, reviewing with council for consideration other bylaws and developing plans for updating. As we normally go through a term, we obviously update the bylaws in a certain order. Various bylaws that we're going to be looking at updating: the signs bylaw, both on private and public properties, the noise bylaw, parking bylaws. Some of the other projects that we're looking for that are major in 2017 are development of fees and charges to offset the cost of enforcement and increase revenues, assuming responsibility for road closing and updates and the road closing policy, development charges bylaws update, which we're trying to get done as expediently as possible as we're working through a lot of new development. Initiate some software to track bylaw enforcement complaints. The staff in the planning department will be finalizing the text of the new official plan to reflect the approval the ministry has given. Initiate some design work for proposed gateways. Initiate zoning bylaw review. Initiate community improvement plan for the industrial area. and the list goes on. Certainly, the Regional Go Mobility Hub and Study Implementation Secondary Plan, the Regional Comprehensive Review, digitizing approved building permits, digitizing site plans, and then there's obviously some major developments that are going to be going on in 2017. Those are also addressed in that document that Director Dale put forward. The next thing we had on our agenda was the Active Transportation Committee meeting minutes of January 27th, and Councillor Brunet was nice enough to speak to those minutes. A few of the high points, certainly committee finalized the terms of reference for that committee. Walter Neubauer is preparing a presentation regarding the existing projects that are underway to come back to the next meeting. The region's transportation master plan will be before committee in May, and hopefully we'll may be able to align some municipal pieces into that transportation master plan. The public may also give input through PICs in relation to that transportation master plan, which will be communicated out to the public so they know when these PICs are by the communications department here at the town. Suggestion will be conveyed back to the region about the possibility of a wayfinding app, and a request that Lisa Gallant from the region would be invited to discuss bike-friendly opportunities with the committee at a future meeting. Mr. Vase will also bring back a revised work plan for the committee to the next meeting. So that pretty much wrapped up those minutes. Certainly I was excited to see our first CIP for the Vineland area brought forward in one of our reports by Kyle Dirksen for the corner of Victoria Avenue and King Street. We had a zoning bylaw application amendment by Hilda Glassbergen for a nanny suite, and that was approved by committee. And then we started the public meeting at 7 o'clock for the Green Lane application for Ron Ticciarelli. And then we went on till about 10:30, so that pretty much wrapped it up. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Yes, that was a good job. Pretty tight. It's okay. Thank you very much. Questions, councillors? Councillor Petrieva.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. Just point of clarification, because it was mentioned that night during the public meeting that some people didn't receive notifications, some people did. I just noticed that the third name on that list should be Jim and Lori Borsodi, not Borsui. So I think not getting notification, or then if you do get a notification, you spell your name wrong, that might be a point of ire, so we don't want to do that. Just asking, though, going forward, and I know Councillor Bernays has raised this, the minutes dealing with the active transportation were from our January meeting. We're going to be having our third meeting on Thursday night. How do we get those to come in a more timely fashion? So, I mean, we've had two meetings, and I mean, there's some really excellent stuff. Chair Brunet is doing a fantastic job getting a work plan down. We want to get those minutes out along with the presentation from Mr. Neubauer, because we want council to be aware of what we're doing. So I know we kind of chastised the library board when their minutes fall behind, wanting to make sure that that doesn't happen to our own standing committee.
Is that a question for Mr. Kirkopoulos?
It would be.
Thank you, sir.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I think what we can do is ensure that we add them to the weekly correspondence so they can get out in a more timely fashion, councillor. And then and then I see the councillor's face, and then through that we can make sure that they appear on the next agenda. That would be the quickest way to get them out. Those minutes are happening on a weekly basis, so I would suspect that would be the quickest way to get it out.
Councillor?
No, those minutes happen once a month. So rather than have those come on a weekly thing, it gets marginalized. So we need them to come to a committee to be spoken to, but we need them to come on a more timely fashion.
Okay, are you in debate with Mr. Kirkopoulos?
I think he was confused with Canada 150 and active transportation.
Well, we'll allow him a moment to clarify that.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I will ensure that those minutes are sent out as quickly as possible once they're finalized and following each of the committees that happen on a monthly basis. And I'm aware that the committee's happening on a monthly basis. My indication was that the summary of correspondence occurs on a weekly basis, so we will ensure that the minutes from the monthly meeting is added to the following week's summary of correspondence.
Satisfied?
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you for the question. Councillor Njima.
Further to that, are we receiving the Canada 150 minutes in the correspondence weekly?
No, I think you get them direct.
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor, as quickly as we can. Now, unfortunately, the Canada 150 Committee meets on Thursday in the afternoons, I believe, usually, and we do the correspondence circulations on Friday, so we're not always able to get the meetings directly. We have, I believe, caught up to date, and last week's Thursday meeting will be coming out this Friday's correspondence. So,
Okay.
yes, they're coming as quickly as we get them.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Your pleasure on the motion? None opposed. The motion is carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. We have the Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole, a motion moved by Councillor Foster and seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the minutes of the Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole meeting of March 15th, 2017 be adopted and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I guess you would say this was the third of the triumvirate of long meetings when it was all said and done. We started at 7 and finished about 3 minutes to 11, so and even then, I think we probably could have gone on for another 2 hours in the discussion of the items that evening. And I'll try and narrow it down to about a 2-minute discussion here, although it doesn't give full justice to the breadth of what we did talk about. We had 3 regional reports came to us and presentations. The first was from Stuart Hendry, and it was concerning increasing broadband availability within Niagara region. And we were specifically looking at the issues around the town of Lincoln with that. There are opportunities coming up for increases and improvements to fiber, and of course the recent CRTC ruling on accessibility for people around broadband is quite important. So anyway, it was a very interesting report on where the region is going to, and there will be further discussions at a future corporate priorities meeting, because we kind of cut off the discussion of that and decided we would be discussing that further at a future meeting. Second report was affordable housing in Niagara. Kathy Cousins and Jeffrey Sinclair gave us a review of that. Statistics are very stark, very surprising for our municipality, very surprising for Niagara in general. The Niagara region is doing good work, but there is a huge need. And so anyway, this gave us a bit of context to this particular need and how it affects Lincoln. And again, everyone was very passionate. That particular discussion went on for quite some time on that particular issue that evening. Third report was from Sinead McElhone. She was from the Niagara Region Public Health Unit, and she was providing statistics to us on basically the health of the community. And it was kind of I guess an ancillary report to what we had about both affordable housing and other issues that we have that were coming forward. Again, a very interesting series of statistics on the whole area of public health. And again, that went on for a long discussion, because it's amazing when actually she gave us a 42-page presentation, but as you're getting into it, it's really quite fascinating looking at how public health and how affordable housing and how all of these things tie themselves together within Niagara region. So it gave us all an awful lot to think about when we were coming out from that. We did deal with 3 reports. First of all, the Ontario's long-term affordable housing strategy update, the review from the municipality as well as the region. So we received that report. We also had the coordinated land use review highlights, and again, a report that came on that we received that has come back through staff. The third item of the evening was the open air fire bylaw review, and essentially with that particular review, what is being recommended by the fire chief through the public consultations that have gone on up till now is essentially a balance between safe and responsible use of fires for recreation within the community, and also the legitimate agricultural uses that go on with that, versus making sure that people are doing what they say they are going to be doing with this. So enforcement of bylaws, etc., within this. So we accepted the report that evening, and in fact, it's going to go to a public meeting as yet to be determined when that particular meeting is going to happen. But we will be doing a public meeting to review that, to go through this, to just outline exactly what it is, where council is going. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good. Yes, this council is becoming very clear on what catches the attention of people in our community. Hockey, 600 people involved in a policy. Fire bans, 1,000 people commented across the town. It's pretty remarkable. Anyway, the recommendations from the public were pretty clear. Thank you very much, Councillor. And as a bit of a follow-up regarding the public health social indicators, I had a discussion today with Dr. McElhone, and also one of the staff who is responsible for massaging this data even to a greater extent. And Councillor Timmers has agreed to come to another meeting where we can get more detail on this that area on the map where it was shown that the early data for emotional maturity was quite a concern. So we're going to see what else we can find out about that, and then talk about who else needs to be involved from the community level. But they're probably going to bring another senior manager from public health to discuss this with us. I think it's very difficult to attack huge problems, but that seemed to be one that jumped out on us, that information, and we'll see if we can start to work out a plan for dealing with it. So I'd like to thank Councillor Timmers for agreeing to be part of it. All right, any other questions or comments? Your pleasure on the motion? Oh, I'm very sorry, Councillor Thompson, and I even had your name written down.
That's quite fine. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank the region for coming in and putting forward these reports. I mean, I'm sure that based on the discussion level we had in all of these presentations, I believe a lot of us were kind of shocked with regards to what the data was saying. And I appreciate the CAO lining this up for us to come in. And yeah, I was just blown away. So really thank them for that.
Thank you. Councillor Brunet?
Thank you, Mary. And I'd just like to echo Councillor Thompson's comments. You know, in the last 2 weeks, I think we've been pleasantly surprised to see an inundation from the region. We had our Chair Caslin here with the State of the Union address tonight, Councillor Hodgson, and these 3 groups. And there's no doubt this is a very complex, very deep, situation when we start talking about affordable housing and poverty. But we've been hearing it for quite some time. So I think, some of the data, I was shocked, like, a lot of it is data and it's information, but just to see her presentation and see how we can look at that and drill down on it within our municipalities and even in our wards, some of that information that we could be using, I think is really interesting, and I we really look forward to seeing how this gets moved forward, and glad to see Councillor Timmers, who seems to have a background in this, who speaks very articulately about this every time we talk about it. Glad she's stepping up on that, and I wish her all the best on it. Thank you.
The next time we meet, we'll meet at the call of the regional staff because they're going to be doing some drilling down with this information, and it's going to be Lincoln specific. And then we'll bring that report back to committee, an appropriate committee. Anyone else? All right, your pleasure on the motion. Any opposed? The motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is confirmation of compliance, Section 34 of the Planning Act. We have a number of items. I have a motion moved by Councillor McMillan, seconded by Councillor Njima, that Council has considered the requirements of paragraph 17 of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, and concludes that no further public meeting is required in the matter of the following proposed amendments to zoning bylaw number 9314-Z1. Number 2017-18-Z488 to amend zoning bylaw number 93-14-Z1 as amended, re Glasenbergen. Your pleasure on the motion? None opposed. The motion is carried. And we have bylaws. A motion moved by Councillor Njima and seconded by Councillor Pachariva, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaw. Number 2017-16 to amend traffic and parking bylaw 89-2000 Vinewood Park Extension 3. Number 2017-17 to authorize a site plan agreement with Michael and Rebecca Glasbergen. Number 2017-18-Z488 to amend zoning bylaw number 93-14-Z1 as amended, Glasbergen. Number 2017-19 to authorize the development charge reduction grant agreement with Kyle Dirksen. Number 2017-20 to authorize a residential grant agreement with Kyle Dirksen. Number 2017-21 to authorize a landscaping grant agreement with Kyle Dirksen. Number 2017-22 to authorize a site plan agreement with 1650607 Ontario Limited. Your pleasure on the motion? None opposed. The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Njima, seconded by Councillor Pachariva, that bylaws number 2017-16, 2017-17, 2017-18-Z488, 2017-19, 2017-20, 2017-21, 2017-22, read a first time, be now read a second and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaws. Pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. None opposed. Are there any councillor inquiries? Councillor Pachariva.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a question to Mr. Kakopoulos. We've got the rather exciting announcement last week about the GO bus stopping at Niagara College, and I understand he has some news with his discussion on Metrolinx about some improvements to our stop.
Mr. Kakopoulos.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to answer specifically the councillor's question, I did have a conference call last week with the facility development supervisor of bus facilities and infrastructure with GO Transit regarding the Beamsville GO bus park and ride location. And what he did inform me of is that he would be back to me this week with more details, but that we would be discussing in the interim a temporary bus shelter and appropriate seating in that particular area we would look at right-sizing it and doing something in the interim while more detailed design happens with GO and Metrolinx for a more permanent station. Simultaneous to that, I've also been in conversations with Director Dave Graham respecting the sidewalk there. I think the two things we heard about that particular stop was sidewalk connectivity from a safety perspective, as well as just protection against inclement weather. Now, more of that is focused in the winter months, but when we get into the summer months, getting away and out of heat would also be something that we would look at. So we do have a quote on the sidewalk, and it'll be something that Director Graham and I bring back as soon as possible, likely to a future infrastructure committee meeting and or a committee of the whole in terms of updating council on that particular undertaking.
So possibly 2 to 3 months?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think the timeline that the supervisor at GO gave me between ordering and installation would likely be 14 to 16 weeks, so taking us into the end of June or early July, just in terms of the procurement of those types of materials, so, and the pouring of a concrete pad, et cetera.
Very good, thank you very much. Councillor Pacioretty, you had another item?
Yeah, just another item, just a shout out to Mr. Graham and the entire Public Works staff on the excellent job they did last week with our Snowmageddon. And a follow-up to that is, unfortunately, I got to make the trip to Windsor and back on Thursday. And I came across, there was a time when I had to exit the 401 because of an accident, so I was looking around for some traffic updates. But there was a rather interesting article on the radio, and it was about the Chatham-Kent library system. They have a seed library. So, we're a Center for Excellence in Agriculture. Chatham-Kent and all of their libraries, you can go in with your library card. You can get out seeds. You can plant the seeds at the end of the year, bring back the extra seeds, and they do that. So maybe Councillor Foster or Councillor McMillan could bring that up at the next library meeting as something new, a new business. I think it's kind of cool, and it would integrate our library with what we're trying to do as a municipality.
Oh, my. Yes, for those that didn't hear it, Councillor Foster is looking for seed money. Councillor Hodgson, seed libraries don't usually go to the local library. Do you have anything to add to this? We have seed libraries. You have nothing to add? Okay, very good. All right, good. Thank you very much, Councillor, for that. And Mr. Kokopoulos, is that something that that you can speak at SMT this week to the chief librarian about? It's quite all right. You don't have to answer. I just wanted to make sure it got passed on to the right person. Councillor McMillan.
Madam Mayor, it might make a good blend because the library is very much involved in the community gardens, so it'll be a good extension to that. We'll certainly take it to our meeting tomorrow.
Absolutely. Tomorrow. Oh, good timing. Okay, very good. Councillor Rajima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Inquiry about the upcoming OSUM conference. I don't know if we've had a discussion about who's planning to go to that. I'm not sure. I think it's the beginning of May.
Mr. Kokopoulos, how are we handling this now?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think our representative, Councillor Foster, had highlighted that conference was happening. I think what we've gotten away from doing is having the public dialogue on those particular things, and instead, if there's an expression of interest, working to ensure that occurs in that fashion. So, if the councillor has an expression of interest in terms of OSUM and the benefit to OSUM, please let myself and or Andrea know, and then we can work to facilitate that from happening.
Okay, thank you.
Keeping in mind, Councillor, that we have a budget. The budget's been approved, and we'll be working within those guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so anyone else? Okay. Is there any notice of motion? None? Announcements. Mr. Kokopoulos, I understand you may have an announcement for us. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you. I do have an announcement. It's more of a preliminary announcement. You'll recall I updated you a few weeks ago about the Jordan Historical Museum and an endeavor that we were looking at. An idea had come through the community, a number of years ago that even predated me being here, that had talked about an effort to see if we could maintain the house from it being demolished. It was something as we started going down the process of more detailed design on the site and starting the migration from the current location to our temporary location at Beam Street. We had seen if there was interest in anybody purchasing the house and moving it from that location before we were to demolish it. So a way to really maintain the house, save the house from demolition. There are some distinct heritage features with respect to the house. I think in the story that Mr. Edwards did, my comments were general around looking to see and entertaining any potential offer. I mean, there's a cost to us demolishing. So I think what we went out to market to look for was there would be anyone who would incur all the costs of moving the particular house and then at the end of the day save the municipality those particular costs. And I think there was some sentiment, in the community that it would be a nice thing to do, that it would be a nice thing to save this particular heritage property. So I can tell you we received a few offers. I did review those offers. There is a tentative deal to be had on this particular location, and so once that period where it's non-revocable passes, I can update council further on that. But some good news, local buyers, whether they decide to keep it local or move it to a neighboring municipality is yet to be determined, but we have seen some interest, and I will update council further once it's finalized.
Councillors, there had been some public discussion about it and discussion with Mr. Kokopoulos. We wanted to make sure that councillors were also had access to that information. So that's actually a good news story. It was a member of the Heritage Committee actually that had the idea. It was brought up at one of the public meetings in Jordan that we should try and sell the house. So it's coming along, so that's very good. Thank you very much. Councillor Foster and Councillor Brunet. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a reminder, this upcoming Friday evening is the 20th anniversary dinner of the Rotary Club. It's going to be at 20 Valley Golf and Country Club. And our guest speaker for the evening is Tim Hudak. And actually, I'm quite looking forward to it now that he has the partisan gloves off. It'll be very interesting to hear what he has to say about not only politics, but real estate, where he's now involved within the province. So anyway, I'm quite looking forward to it. I hope as many of you can attend as you can. Thank you.
Apparently the tickets are all sold. Is that correct? Is that what I heard you say, Councillor Njima?
No. I was talking about the OBAAs.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's still a few? Okay. All right, fair enough. Well, maybe you can do something about that, each of you. Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very quickly, I know she's much too modest to comment, but we've got a new communications senior person in Carrie Beattie, and I think she's doing a marvelous job. And that was certainly seen front and center, as Councillor Pachariba commented last week. It's my understanding it was the first time, I believe, in 11 years that all 12 municipalities shut down for the day because of the snow. But I can tell you, I had the opportunity to come in here. The CAO called me and said they needed a wingman in the truck, so I was up there plowing up in Camden, keeping Councillor Timmer's roads clean. But the point I'm trying to make is the CAO, the Director of Public Works, and Carrie Beattie were here like NASA, like Houston. It was all hands on deck, and so Carrie Beattie went out in one of the plows and did some live streaming with Lucas Dykstra, one of our drivers. And it was picked up by CNN. So the municipality of the town of Lincoln was on CNN. So hats off to Carrie Beattie and our CAO, who are doing a marvelous job communicating to our public and through social media.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. Mike also went out, and he tells me it's a pretty bumpy job. Do you have any comments?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Go again.
No. I mean, I did have the opportunity to go out with our frontline staff, and I think just to echo what Chair Brunet just said, our public works staff, our frontline staff do phenomenal work. I think, if you haven't gone out with them, and most people don't get that chance like I do to go out with them, I think one of the questions I asked, do you think anybody knows, the level of skill that's required to do this job? And one of our drivers, I went out with one of our other drivers, and he said absolutely not. I can tell you it was a bumpy ride. You're definitely hopping all over the place when you're in these vehicles, and there's a level of precision. They didn't let me touch the controls. I didn't want to take out any mailboxes or any parked vehicles, so they didn't let me touch the controls. But we definitely went up a couple of roads. I was out there for a little over an hour, and when you think about 13-hour shifts that our folks do, kudos to them. They have an immense amount of respect for me in terms of what they do, and I'll echo the same comments in terms of the work that Carrie is doing in communicating that. I was happy to see CNN pick that up. I can say in all the years I was in Hamilton doing a similar role like Carrie earlier in my career, I never had CNN actually pick up anything I did. So kudos to Carrie and Dave and his entire team.
Yeah, it was a pretty efficient operation. Everything was well looked after, so thanks to everybody involved. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to highlight the fact that we have the Prudhome's secondary plan update coming up next week. On Wednesday, March 29th, there are two opportunities for two sessions, I guess you'd call it. One is at 4 o'clock and the other one is at 6:30. And it will be held at the Lincoln Community Center on Central Ave in Beamsville. Certainly emailing Diane Campbell in the planning department to sort of let her know you're coming would be much appreciated. Once again, that's for the secondary plan for Prudhome's, and it'll be on March 29th, 4 p.m. session and a 6:30 session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Timmers?
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I wanted to talk about something that I've been working on in our community. Last summer, through partnering with Niagara Regional Housing, Literacy Link in Beamsville, organization RCT, I was able to put together a program that's running out of the 3278 Queen Street, the Niagara Regional Housing building there, for seniors. And the program is called Connecting Seniors Through Computers. And with a partnership of a lot of people, we also had staff help here from with John Brown, our IT manager. We were able to open a computer lab in the Queen Street location. And it's been so successful. It's been just fabulous. The participation is way up there. We have about 20 students who come out every Thursday morning for a 3-hour class. It's being, the instructor is a professional adult tutor who is Nancy Siciliani, and she's fabulous. Anyway, so it's been running since the summer, and we've been approached to open our second location, which I'm really, really excited about. It's all done through volunteers and through donation, and we are currently planning an open house for April 11th at the 30 Robinson Street Seniors Building in Grimsby. We'll be cutting the ribbon. We have our computer lab set up and ready to go, and it's really exciting, and it's some very, very positive things coming out of that program with seniors, finally getting them connected to family and friends through Facebook. Every one of our students has been able to apply through RCT, which is Renewed Computer Technology. It's based on, it's geared to income. So you can purchase a computer or a laptop at a very, very minimal cost, depending on your income. So every single one of our students now has a laptop in Beamsville. Their skills have come, it's just incredible. They are now doing Facebook and email and Pinterest and all those fun things that everyone else likes to do. So now we're moving on to Grimsby. So I just wanted to announce that, and I'm really excited about it. And I should mention through help with Niagara Regional, Tim Rigby, who is a manager of the Beamsville site, was just fabulous. We met with him, and he said, what do you need? And it's just kind of been going from there. And it's been very, very positive experience. So thank you.
That's great, Lynn.
Yeah.
Who is the lead agency on that?
Well, it's Niagara Regional Housing Buildings, but it's been through myself and Nancy Cicciani. We've approached them, and we pretty much have been taking the lead. They've been providing the space and a computer and Wi-Fi within their building. But other than that, it's the two of us that are launching it.
That's good. Excellent.
Yeah,
Good
it's
for
really
you.
exciting.
That's great. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Councillor Njima.
I have a question for Councillor Timmers. There's an open house in Grimsby on April 11th. What time and where is it?
Yes, it will be at the Niagara Regional Housing Building on 30 Robinson Street in Grimsby at 11 o'clock in the morning on April 11th.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Next Tuesday evening, it's a week tomorrow night, March 21st, we will be hosting a 13th Street public meeting at the Jordan Fire Hall from 6 to 8 p.m. And this is for all those East Enders that are in and around the 13th Street area between 4th Avenue and Horton Avenue. A couple of years ago, we had a significant storm that wiped out the road. It's been closed since, and this is your opportunity to come out and talk with our town planners about the plans for that area. So for those that are in and around 13th Street, next Tuesday, March 21st, Jordan Fire Hall, 6 to 8 p.m. See you there.
Very good. And I'd like to announce that tomorrow morning at 9:15, I'm going to be at Tim Hortons in Vineland, meeting with a number of the local farmers. We have 4 or 5 things that we're going to be discussing, including making sure that everybody has the date of that PIC, as well as the servicing requirements, just some general discussion about prud'homs. And they're, of course, very interested in the report around the coordinated review in terms of what we asked for and what was approved and not approved. So that just an opportunity to have some more community conversation with them. All right, we moved on, no closed session, and we have our final bylaw confirmation. I have a motion moved by Councillor Njima, seconded by Councillor McPherson, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaw. Number 2017-23, to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by council resolution. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. And a motion moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Njima, that bylaw number 2017-23 read a first time be now read a second and third time and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Ladies and gentlemen, the business of this council have been completed as circulated and posted. I now call the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Kirkopoulos.